This lesson is Chapter 2, Lesson 1, and we're going to be talking about integers and absolute value. There is some key vocabulary that you will need to know for this lesson, so I suggest writing down the definitions and pausing the video so that you have time to do that on your own piece of paper. First thing is that we need to define a negative and a positive number. A negative number is a number less than 0. So a number less than 0. So that's going to be something like -2, -1, -5. Those are all negative numbers. A positive number is something you probably already know very well. A number greater than 0, and those are really easy to come up with, like 2, 5, 1,000. Okay, so integers are positive and negative whole numbers. 0 is included in integers. You can think of an integer as being any number that is on the number line. That's a whole number. So an integer is a positive or negative whole number. So an integer would not be a fraction. An integer would not be a decimal. So if we want to show the set of integers, they are infinite. They go on in both directions. We could have -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, and so on. So integers are positive or negative whole numbers. Now, the absolute value is the distance a number is from 0. So, distance from 0. Now, we use brackets that look like this to show absolute value. So, if I ask you to find the absolute value of -3, I'm asking you to tell me how many spaces is -3 from 0. -3 is 3 below 0, so it is 3 spaces from 0. If I asked you to find the absolute value of 10, well, 10 is 10 spaces above 0, so that's going to be 10. If I asked you to find the absolute value of -15, well, -15 is 15 spaces below 0, so that would be 15. So absolute value is neither positive or negative. It's just how many spaces are you away from 0. Okay, lastly, opposites. Opposites are -3 and +3. We count opposites from 0. So if we go 3 up, the opposite would be 3 down. Say that I asked you to find the opposite of -5. Well, opposite of -5 is up 5 from 0 or +5. So -3 and 3 are opposites. +5 and -5 are opposites. Okay, so let's jump into some examples. It says write an integer for each situation, then identify its opposite and describe what it means. 23 degrees below 0. So our integer is going to be -23 because we are 23 degrees below 0. The opposite would be 23 degrees above 0. Letter B, 11 more inches than normal. So normal is going to be our 0. That's where we start. 11 more inches than normal would be positive 11 inches, or just 11 inches. The opposite of that would be negative 11, or 11 inches less than normal. Okay, letter C, a loss of 18 yards. Loss implies negative because we're losing something. So our integer would be -18. And our opposite Opposite of a loss is a gain, so it would be a gain of 18 yards. That would be the opposite of a loss of 18 yards. Okay, letter D, a deposit of $15. Deposit means that you are putting money in your bank, so that would be a positive $15. That's our integer to represent a deposit of $15. The integer to represent the opposite of this would be a withdrawal, so taking out. And that would be a negative $15 if we were to take out $15. Okay, so let's now evaluate some expressions. An expression is a mathematical sentence without an equal sign, and evaluate means to solve. So the absolute value of negative 3 is positive 3. The absolute value of negative 8 is positive 8. Remember, these are absolute value, and they ask you to tell how far a number is from 0. Negative 8 is 8 spaces below 0, so it would just be 8. So 8 minus 5, which is 3. Okay, here we have the absolute value of negative 4, which is positive 4, because negative 4 is just 4 spaces from 0. Bring down your minus sign. Absolute value of negative 3. Absolute value of positive 3 is just 3, because positive 3 is 3 spaces away from 0, and 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay, for letter D, we have 6 plus the absolute value of x if x equals negative 2. Before we solve, I am going to replace my x with a negative 2. So I'm going to rewrite the problem. Okay, the absolute value of negative 2 is a positive 2. And 6 plus 2 is 8. For our last two examples, I would like to show you one example where we need to do 2 steps to solve the problem. And then the last one is where we will order our integers from least to greatest. So for letter E, it says 9 minus 5, absolute value of z. Now we read this as 5 times the absolute value of z. If there is nothing between a number and a variable, that means to multiply. So I could easily rewrite this as 9 minus 5 times the absolute value of z. Now I'm told that z equals 3, so I'm going to replace z with the number 3. So 9 minus 5 times the absolute value of 3. Okay, the absolute value of 3 is 3 because 3 is just 3 spaces from 0. So that would be 9 minus 5 times 3, which is 15. Okay, now I need to think of this, or I could think of this like money. If I have $9 and I spend $15, then that means that I have gone in debt by $6, or I owe $6. And that is represented by negative 6. 9 minus 15 is negative 6. So that would be my answer when I evaluate. Remember, evaluate means to solve. Okay, last one. Number 3. The top 4th round scores of a recent PGA championship were positive 4, negative 2, 6, 1, negative 4, minus 3, plus 5, negative 2, plus 2, plus 3. Now notice that I said minus and negative for some numbers that had a negative sign in front of them. You can say minus or negative, that is the same thing. So it says order the scores from least to greatest. So I'm going to look for my negative number. Negatives are always smaller than positives. My number that is the furthest away from 0 in the negatives is negative 4. So that's my smallest number. That's my least amount of value out of everything I have. Then I have negative 3, which is closer to 0 than negative 4. Then I have negative 2 and then negative 1. Remember, I'm going from least to greatest. Now that takes care of my negatives. Negative 4 is 4 below 0. Negative 3 is 3 below 0. Negative 2 is 2 below 0. Negative 1 is 1 below 0. So now I'm really close to 0. Okay, now I have my positives. Positives are very easy to order from least to greatest. I've got positive 1, positive 2, positive 3, positive 4, positive 5, positive 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that would be my ordered list of numbers from least to greatest. So hopefully this lesson was a bit more of a review than anything new. If it was a refresher, great. If it was something new, great. But what I need you to remember from this lesson is that we learned that integers are positive and negative whole numbers, including 0. Integers are those whole numbers we see on a number line. Negative numbers are any number that is below 0. Positives are any numbers above 0. And absolute value is the distance that a number is from 0. And we always express absolute value as a positive number. Remember that evaluate means to solve for an answer. Okay, that is all. Thank you so much for listening today. You may go ahead and complete your assignment for this lesson, and please message Mr. Condon if you have any questions. Happy Monday.